Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So I'll just jump off kind of
Yep.
with like a status update
Sure.
of where things are,
Yep.
particularly with Green Hill right now. I know
Yep.
there's been back and forth. 43 inmates moved out, an injunction, moved them back in. County is
37 of them came back. Yeah.
Correct.
A bunch of them chose to stay. Yeah.
And now we have the county, the 13 counties that sued,
Yeah,
so a
sure.
settlement, now Green Hill's back
Sure.
open. So maybe just a status update of how things are operating
Sure.
within Green Hill now.
Green Hill's a facility that is designed to be safe at about 180 young people. As of today, I think by the end of the day we'll have 229 there. So pretty significantly over capacity there. We are looking at news reports about county prosecutions changing. Seattle Times reported recently that King County had twice as many juveniles in their detention facility as they had had a year ago. And many of those will come to us. It's hard to predict exactly how many. So we're trying to do a lot of figuring on that. But we are taking intakes. We're concerned about the safety of a facility that's that overcrowded.
And I understand that double bunking was not something that you guys necessarily want to do. It's not the safest or recommended thing to be doing.
That's correct.
My understanding is that if you guys double bunk every room in there, your max would be somewhere around 256 individuals. Is there any fear that you'll reach that level?
Yeah, I'm concerned. I was concerned at that a couple weeks ago when I instituted a freeze, because I was worried I was going to get to the place where I had people sleeping on the floor. So when I have this many people in this small a space, it exacerbates behaviors. We get fights, we get assaults on staff. It becomes hard to do movement. So if you're going to move guys around on campus, take them to school, for example, you got to have a ratio of staff to, and in order to do that, you got to have everyone else stay in their room. So people spend more time in their room than they would doing programming, because we have to have safe staff ratios. The higher the population gets, the more challenging that gets to do. And then the more time that you spend in your room, the more behaviors. And so that's not a cycle we want to be in. Sleeping on the floor I'm not comfortable with that.
Well, and legally, I know you guys are kind of painted into a corner now.
Yep.
We've got agreements that say we've got to have intakes coming in, so
Yep.
stopping intakes isn't an option right now. We also know that it has to be a DCYF facility. There's only so many of those available
That's
right
correct.
now. What would you say the next step is when we hit that stage, if we surpass 256?
Given the legal constraints that we have, we're gonna have to build some more capacity. And we're going to try and do that as quickly as possible. We're exploring a lot of options, and I don't really want to talk about specific options until we have one that's closer to, yeah, that'll work. But we're absolutely looking at all of the different options that we can have to have additional capacity. We're working with the legislature on this. We'll have obvious funding issues. That's been supportive. I'm not as concerned about that in the short run. But we, in the long run, are going to have our population match our physical capacity.
I do want to talk a little bit about where the population is at, because you mentioned the number 180. We know that it surpassed that number
Yes,
sometime in June of 2023.
Yep.
We didn't hear about this for 13 months later. So we surpassed 180. That's the concern.
Yep.
Why 13 months of a wait, with counties reacting saying we had no idea this was going to happen?
And mea culpa for not doing more notification to counties. That's something in hindsight I wish I'd done more of. When we look at the pattern, what we see is what the arrivals look like, and we got a spike, and then it stayed pretty flat. And we had expected a spike from the JR to 25 legislation. We planned for that. And what we were responding to, we did a number of things to ensure that we built more, we more effectively used our capacity, and we're trying to create more minimum security options. We did the work on, we finally got our CTS, which is the Community Transition Service, where we have kids at home or in the community on electronic home monitoring with wraparound services. They have to meet a lot of legal conditions to be ready for that level of freedom. It's a step down. We redid the way that we sent people to our community facilities to try and maximize that capacity. But again, we want to send people to a community facility where they go to school in the community, or they go out and work a job and then come back. So it's like a work release. We want to make sure we're sending the right folks there so that we don't have the obvious kind of problems that you could have if you sent someone who wasn't ready for that level of responsibility to a community facility. So we redid a new approach to doing that worked in terms of reducing returns, but also ramped up our use of that. We did a lot of work to try and expand our minimum capacity footprint, and we're staying in the 180, 200. I can draw a line and say, at 179 it's safe, and at 181 it's not. It's not quite like that, right? It gets worse, and what we found was that when you got to about 240, was certainly when you, I can't draw you a curve. Like, I'm a math guy, I want to draw you a curve. The curve is not linear in terms of the behaviors as it got more concentrated, we got much more behavior. And that's when we said, we can't do 240. We spiked in a couple of months from 180, 200, staying flat. We're concerned, we're doing work, to, oh, this isn't going to work.
But while we talk about the numbers, and I understand that, like, mathematically it's hard to say 220, 230, 240, but you do have math that says staff are fearful of their job.
Absolutely.
At one point, you guys have this PBS survey.
Yep.
And it says that the national average is 22% of people in a carceral setting such as yours, 22% would feel unsafe. You're at 38% in October of 2023. You spiked past 60%, almost 3 times the national average, several months before you sound the alarm. So wasn't that the time? Like you do have numerical values telling you this is not a good situation. It's untenable.
Yeah, and it takes a while to figure out what's the right alternative. My job here is right now, and I come into work every day, is to try and say, here's the situation we have. How do I create maximum safety for young people? How do I create maximum safety for staff? And those are very related concepts. When I go back and look at, and I'll have time to go back and look at the trend lines and say, wow, that would have been a great place to have done something now. Hindsight's 2020. We took a bunch of actions that seemed appropriate at the time. And as the situation got worse, we did more and more of those. We got to a point where we got a big spike, and we said, we have to take more decisive action. We have other things that are in the works right now that aren't ready yet to do. So that's the work that we're doing right now.
And I understand hindsight is 2020.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Totally understand that. But when we're talking about hindsight, we're really talking about 12, 13 months ago. We're not talking about, at what point when I'm looking at video, we've recently received videos of, a single staff member in a wing, an entire riot unfolding. She's on the radio calling people. People are taking clipboards and beating each other over the head. How do you, in your position of power, see things like that unfolding, see the numbers coming in real time, and not say, well, I'll have 20/20 hindsight soon?
Okay. So 12 months ago, we put budget requests in for new capacity. We've developed I just visited new cottages here, new cottages opening at Green Hill, building capacity to respond to an overcrowded situation. We do changes in training for staff. We do changes in hiring for staff. There's a lot of work that you do to try and build a staff that responds to a population that we're required to serve. You talked about our legal boundaries. We're required to serve the population. I've got to build adequate levels of staffing to do that. I got to have adequate management to do that. I got to have training to do that. We revamped our training curriculum pretty significantly. Been trying to ramp this up to respond to a slow growth, and then we get a sudden growth And that's where we're now concerned. It's not a safe situation today.
Do you feel like, because you've talked a lot about trying to balance the safety of residents and staff, obviously both are paramount.
Yep.
Do you feel like you've done that?
Do I feel like I've, so you want to do, am I balancing the,
Have you been capable of balancing the safety of residents and staff? When people get a full picture themselves of what's unfolding inside of Green Hill, for instance, do you think people will believe that you're balancing that people
so
are safe?
we're doing this interview here at Echo, where right next to our sample fence section here, where we're in the process of getting a fence built in here, which is mostly about safety for community. To some degree, it will improve the safety of the facility. Facility's gotten a lot better in the last year here at a stable population level. We're pretty excited about that. So am I balancing that here? Yeah, I think so. Are we balancing that at Green Hill? We have work to do at Green Hill to balance safety for staff and safety for young people on that campus in order to have a therapeutic environment, because all those guys are going to get out.
Yeah.
All right, they're all going to go back to the community, and we want to provide a therapeutic environment so that when they get back, they're in a positive relationship with their community, pro-social relationship. In order to do that, we have to have this level of safety, which means we have to manage the size of the population on that facility.
Do you feel that the students that are at Green Hill School now are getting that therapeutic, rehabilitative
Not nearly as
process?
much as I'd like them to be getting, that's for sure.
Should that be concerning for the people of Washington, that the people that should be getting rehabbed and will be
Sure.
released into the population?
Absolutely, and that's the concern that we have. At a lower level, we ramped up graduations, we start having manufacturing academies. Those are the kind of things. Young people, when they leave us, they need to have their health, their physical health, their behavioral health. We do 100% treatment for substance use disorder. We have medically assisted treatment for people who want to get that. Can't force it on people. Doesn't work to force it on people. So these are the kind of treatments that we have there. We want to have education that enables them to get a job. We've ramped that up. We think we have a reasonably strong education program. We can't get kids to classroom if we have an overpopulated setup. So we have to figure out, all right, here's the capacity needs that we have. We're going to have to build more capacity in this system, and we're going to focus on the safety of the community, and then we focus on the therapeutic nature of it. You can't do one without the other.
Well, and when we talk about education, obviously a lot of this comes back to JR to 25. And I know a lot of folks, this was a progressive policy that was really championed through the legislature and then through Governor Inslee. There was a lot of celebration. It was done on science, it was done on research. This could potentially help people avoid recidivism. But when it came down to it, as you talk about education, some of the first people that were booted from Green Hill, the 43 transfers, were the people that were succeeding. You all at your team invited us to highlight the good work going on behind the scenes, and the valedictorian was one of the first people shipped out to an adult prison. Isn't that a failure of the whole goal of JR to 25?
So JR to 25 was built, the bill passed in 2019. In 2019, we were looking at a 30-year progression of decline in youth violence, decline in prosecutions. The system, it's the overall JR system was somewhere between a tenth and a fifth the size it was in the 90s. So thousands of young people, not close to that today. 30-year decline in youth violence, 30-year decline in incarceration. These are good stories. In that, you say, all right, young people have developing brains until they're in their mid-20s, particularly young men. And we think that they'll do better in a rehabilitative setting. And I absolutely agree, it's the right policy. What happens in 24 months ago, sometime in there, is that trend changes. We get a pandemic, it's changed a lot of behavior for young people, it changed their entire experience. You're seeing a significant increase in youth violence. The world has changed, and we have to respond to that change. The system, it's slow to build physical capacity. You can't do it overnight. This is not a thing you can buy a construction trailer for.
Well, and I understand that, but we are talking about a bill that passed in 2019. It is 2024.
And a bill that passed in 2019 with forecasts that made it make sense. And now it's 2024, and we have a very different experience on the ground in terms of the population that we need to serve. So we need to make the system match the population that we need to serve so that we can provide that therapeutic environment.
Well, and I agree. And I think everybody that's complaining or raising concerns
Yep.
Agree with that as well. Everybody that I seem to hear asking for you to step down share that this is a system that changed because it needed to.
Yeah.
And you have two legislators right now that have called on you to resign, a Democrat and a Republican.
Okay.
We've got people on both sides of the aisle. On top of that, the governor's own state advisory board that he instituted have written him and said, we need a face-to-face. We need Secretary Hunter to step down. How do you respond to those people that are most closely tied to this juvenile justice system saying that you're not doing your job?
Yesterday, I showed up at work and focused on improving the safety and the therapeutic nature of the system that we provide. Today, did the same thing. Tomorrow, I intend to do the same thing. My job is to provide a safe and secure environment. I face these are hard choices that you have to make. Do you want to, you talked about the transfer. We transferred 43 young people, 43 people over 21 who were going to serve time at DOC after they turned 25. We transferred them early so that they would get more services at DOC than they were getting at Greenhill with the level of population we had at 240. And the other 185 people on that campus would be able to get the kind of services that they need in order to provide that therapeutic environment. Is it a choice I wanted to make? No. Is it a choice that I thought produced the safest and the most therapeutic environment for all the people we serve? Yeah. It's a set of hard choices here. And I came to work, as I said, yesterday focused on safety, and I'll come to work tomorrow focused on safety.
But when we talk about choices, it's fair to say that those same choices are what have painted you into a legal corner. That decision to transfer 43 youth is what led to an injunction. That decision to stop taking in youth is what led to a lawsuit from 13 counties. It's also what led to the state advisory board to call for you to be fired. So these decisions that you're being made, I'm curious if you still believe they were the right decisions.
As I said on the intake freeze, I should have reached out a lot sooner to counties, and we're working closely with the counties now to try and get a little further upstream and understand what that pipeline looks like. But I made a decision that was about safety. And I'm going to continue to make decisions that are focused initially on safety, because I can't run therapy without safety. Then I do the therapeutic environment. The legal environment exists the way it exists. We don't agree with the judge's choice. We're complying with the court order on the transfer. We think the statute clearly allows us to do this to keep the system safe, to keep the facility safe. This judge disagrees. We've appealed that decision. That'll take some time to work through. We're going to comply with the situation. The combination of those decisions has made the system less safe. Having intakes, whether we have an injunction or whether we just take the intakes, it's the same number of young people coming into the setting. The injunction isn't what makes it safe or unsafe. It's the number of people that we have on campus, and managing that is the challenge.
Well, I guess the reason I bring up the injunction is because had this process started sooner, had we looked at the numbers, your own numbers say 180 is the safe number. So why not make those moves sooner? I mean, I didn't come up with the 180 number.
No, I came up.
Yeah,
right,
you all
I
did.
I mean, we did. We looked at the numbers and said, this is the number that this system is designed for, that we can operate safely. Can we operate a little bit over that? Yeah. Can we operate a lot over that? No. That's the number that we think national best practice would have us below 150. for a facility. Smaller facilities are better. The safety level, though, is one that we specified. We thought we had actions in place that would keep us right around 180, keep us draining, and we've asked for more minimum security capacity located in the community where people are going to go back so that they can build those relationships.
But
we're going to need to have that capacity.
Your agency has said to me on numerous occasions that you can look at the numbers and you are watching them. 6 to 8 people coming in, 3 to 4 going out.
Yep.
So how do you find the math to say, yeah, we're going to hover around 180 as we see twice as many come in?
We look at implementing the CTS. We think we'll get 20 through that we by the end of the year. We look at expanding the way that we use our community facilities. We think there's another 20 to 40 that go there.
When did that work start?
That analysis that you're doing there of this is how much the intakes are exceeding is what we looked at in the spike this spring. And that's when we started taking more drastic planning and taking more drastic actions. Our population at Greenhill was reasonably flat in the 180, 190 for quite some time. And that's where we do the work to try and say, all right, let's get back down to the safe level. Let's do the minimum security. That's the design of the system, is to get people stabilized, get them the skills that they need to be successful, get them out to a community facility, get them probably from a community facility out into the next step down with the electronic home monitoring. That's where we focused our work until we got the big spike in March and April that made that not be feasible anymore.
So CTS is a great example.
Yep.
How long has that been an option?
That's been an option formally. We started taking young people there July 1st.
How long were you allowed to use CTS? Was that not 3 years ago?
We were allowed to use it 6 months after we had a validated assessment, which we have to do a validated study on, which takes some time. The legislature wanted to see us do that study. They wanted to see those results sit there for 6 months after that. That turned on July 1st.
Okay. So I just keep trying to do the math on here and try to see like when the numbers were, and I understand that you don't see the same thing as I do when I see 6 to 8 coming in, 3 to 4
That's what I
going
see.
out.
That's what I see this spring. That wasn't what we saw for quite some time.
Gotcha.
All right. I mean, it depends on when you look at the number. That's what you look at this spring, and that's what got you from 190, 200 in that range, boom, up to 240. And at that point, you're saying, okay, is this going to go on forever? Is this going to slow down? Is this a post-pandemic bounce? Is this hard to say? It's a 30-year trend that just reversed.
Sure, but we also know, as you mentioned, post-pandemic, that the courts were basically not sending people through the system. So we know there's a backlog already. Like, we know this wave of inmates is coming, correct?
No, we don't know that.
We don't?
We don't. We don't really know how many people the counties are prosecuting.
So you are watching. So if I were to go back in my own news reports and look at like what we were reporting on in the court system and the backlog that was being created, I wouldn't see that there's a backlog.
You'd see a backlog of court, but when is that? What are they going to do with those? We don't see that.
Probably send them to carceral settings, correct?
Hard to say. Like, what's King County going to do? King County is the biggest provider.
You feel comfortable telling me at this stage, even with 20/20 hindsight, that you were sitting in an office looking at a backlog of court cases, and you couldn't predict that you would see an influx of inmates.
I did. We saw an influx of inmates. We saw it slow down at the beginning of the pandemic, and then we see a spike. After that, we said, okay, there's the spike that's come out of the court system, and then we see it level off. I said, okay, that was the spike. That's the predictive tool. Do I run the court information system that has access to all of the different court computers? No, the court system runs that. Do we have that projection in a way that this operation can understand? I would love to have had better data.
I know we're running out of time, so I will ask, if you received that call from Governor Inslee to explain the situation that we're in.
Mm-hmm.
DCYF has called it a crisis themselves.
Mm-hmm.
How do you explain your most recent performance? How would you defend your schedule? If he were to ask you, Ross, how have you performed? Why should I keep you on before we transition to a new governor?
I work for Governor Inslee, and I've certainly had a large number of meetings with Governor Inslee about the topic of what we're going to do here. And I come in and I describe to my entire authorizing environment, Governor Inslee, the community that we work with, the community that we protect, the young people we work with. Here's the situation we have today. Here's what we're doing about it. Do you have better suggestions? And we're going to continue to implement those suggestions. I'm open to suggestions about what the next step is to do, and we've certainly had those conversations. I expect to continue those conversations.
Do you think you have his confidence?
I came to work yesterday focused on safety, came to work today focused on safety, tend to come to work tomorrow focused on safety.
When other people in the industry question whether you should be in this position, does that concern you that there was better options out there that could guide this in a better direction?
You know, my job, like I said, I have a hard job. I face challenging decisions. I make decisions based on what I think the right thing to do is, and I'm going to continue to do that.
I know I said we were running out of time. I saw a flash of time, so I do want to ask you if there's anything that I'm not asking you about that you feel that we should be focused on, the things that I'm not asking you questions of that you would like us to consider when we sit down to put this story together.
I think you guys are going to write the story that you want to write. And I think you ought to look at the experience in other states, what they've done, what their experience has been with staffing, what their experience has been with capacity needs and how they're responding to it. I think that would be an interesting body of work to look at.
Are there any states in particular that you'd point us to that you'd like to compare to?
I'm not the expert in terms of what every state is doing on its juvenile corrections thing. I think we face, and in my discussions with my peers, certainly in the child welfare space around the country, lots of people had a lot of challenges with staffing coming out of the pandemic. And that's certainly something that we faced. Our environment for staff has been very challenging to hire. More staff makes this better, gets our ratios better, gets our ability to provide programming stronger. And so that's the work that we're focused on, is how do we build a large and stable staff to manage the system that we have in an entirely different labor market. So I'm looking forward to the challenge.
Gotcha. And I'll promise to you that we will be sticking to every fact, data point, information. Our story will be based on your own department's affidavits, the videos, the filings that have been created. We aren't straying anywhere from what we can put in a data point. All right. Anything else you'd like to add?
No, I'm fine. Thank you.
Katie?
I just have one quick one, if you don't mind, and that is, would you mind saying something a bit to the staff in the sense of, we've spoken to a good chunk of folks who say that they, as you know, folks unsafe coming to work, and they say that their supervisors and that Jason Aldana are saying to them, this is the job you signed up for. This is what you signed up for. And they're saying to themselves, well, I know I took a job that had some risk, but I didn't sign up to be assaulted every day or kind of, what would you say to those staff members who, they want to do their jobs, they want to be part of the rehabilitative system, so what would you say about that?
Well, say something I said earlier, is the staff come to work every day with the same goal. They want to provide a safe environment for the young people we serve. They have lots of job options. Our staff are committed to the work that they do, and I'm incredibly thankful for the work that they do. One of the joys of coming here today is I had a chance to talk to some of the staff working with some of our most challenged young people, and I'm in awe of the work that they do every day. We're working hard to provide a safe environment, to provide a population level that we can serve adequately, to hire and retain as many staff as possible. That's our job, and we're working hard at it.